Earlier today, I was using the Uchi app and a question came up, which was, what is something that you felt was impossible, but then it became possible for you? So I had to take a few minutes and really think about this for a while because I kind of feel like most things in life are possible. I mean, other than, what defies the laws of physics, but most things I think are possible. So I really had to think about this. And then it came back to me that years ago when I was 29 years old, so this is back in 1998, I had signed up for my first NOLS course. So NOLS, NOLS, is the National Outdoor Leadership School. So that's nols.edu. And I signed up for this 3-week, 20-night expedition that was going to include backpacking, wilderness backpacking, mountaineering, and technical rock climbing. And again, at 29, I had never done more than one night of backpacking in my life. And that one night was only like a month before because I thought I should try it out. But I was just really excited about this adventure, and it was a professional course. So we had 2 guides, and I think there were 9 students on the course. And I was one of the older students at 29 years old. And I was really excited, but I was pretty nervous and scared and so on. And I'll try to include pictures because I didn't have any video, back in 1998. But I'll try to include some pictures so you get a feel of what was going on in this course. But what had happened was, we started out, I arrived in Washington State and we were getting all of our gear together. And again, I was a complete novice. My fitness level was that of a good Stairmaster. I used to do like Stairmaster 30 minutes a day, like 4 or 5 days a week back in the 90s. And I did a little bit of strength training back then, but that was really about all for my fitness. I hadn't even started my triathlon career at this point. And so I was pretty nervous. And so we get to, the students are there and we're getting our equipment together. Most all the equipment I had to rent from the NOLS, school. And packs were huge, and I had the right clothing because they tell you what to get. So we get everything set up, and honestly, even like the first day or the first morning after we slept one night at a campground, I had to go to the bathroom in a porta potty, which I had not really done that before. And I get used to get a little anal retentive about pooping in places. And this porta potty didn't even have a seat. It only had a sheet metal tube. It was large, but that was it. So you couldn't really sit on it, or it would cut into your legs and butt. Anyway, and then we get to the trailhead, that very first day, and we had a group meeting. And this isn't even part of what freaked me out, but I just wanted to share it because it's become such a big part of my life, and I've talked about it in a lot of other podcast interviews that I've had over the years. And so we were all sharing what our concerns were and what our goals were. We just sat in a circle at the trailhead, and I recall I had 3 major concerns for this 20-night expedition that we were going on. And they were, in no particular order, they were chafing, because my inner thighs always chafe no matter what. So I'd gotten underwear that was like long enough. This is like before really like spandex or that kind of thing, or boxer briefs. This is before that, or before, for me anyway. So chafing, especially on my inner thighs, and going to the bathroom in the woods because I had never done that before, and bonking or hitting the wall, which is a low glycemic. It's when your blood sugar drops and you feel shaky and lightheaded and things like that. And I have a lot of other videos on my channel about that as well, because I've totally solved that problem, and it can solve it for you as well. So those are my 3 biggest concerns going into this trip. I had others, but those were the 3 that I shared in our little group meeting. And there was another student who had a lot of experience, but he was still a student. And he had shared that his goal was to improve on his zones. And by zones, I mean his comfort zone, his stretch zone, and his panic zone or oh shit zone. So, your comfort zone is what you feel comfortable doing. Your stretch zone or growth zone, that's where like most of your growth actually happens. It's difficult, it's uncomfortable, it's slightly painful, but it's not freaking you out. So you're paralyzed and you go into fight or flight, which is your panic zone. So this really stuck with me. I remember the day like, it was yesterday, and this is like 30 years ago now. Um, but it really stuck with me, and I've shared it, and it's really helped a lot of other people too, because so often we operate in our comfort zone. But what I noticed, and especially through COVID, is that the longer we stay in our comfort zone and we don't push into our stretch zone, then our comfort zone gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's where anything, even like after COVID, going out and socializing or meeting friends at a restaurant or for some activity feels like a really big effort because we're pushing into our stretch zone again because our comfort zone has shrunk. Well, I didn't even realize it, but starting this whole adventure, my comfort zone was about like this. My stretch zone was just a little bit bigger, and everything else was my panic zone. Well, after 20 nights in the backcountry, my comfort zone was massive. My stretch zone was totally humongous, and it would have to be literally a life or death situation for me to be in a panic zone because we went through some serious shit during this NOLS expedition. But it's just amazing how much my zones massively increased. But again, on day one, my comfort zone was still just like this. So we get started and we start, our routes and stuff, and it was going to be a lot of off trail stuff too. By the way, this was the NOLS Pacific Northwest Educators course. Because I thought, oh, maybe I want to do some outdoor education as like a leader or a teacher, educator. This is like earlier in my career. And I thought that would be really cool. So I signed up for this course and thought I would learn a lot, which I did. And so we get started. Well, it wasn't very long before I was like way in over my head. Um, and there were a few other students that were in the same kind of situation as me. I mean, I thought I was like the worst of it, but others were also in the same situation. And so, honestly, and this is what I thought was impossible, on day 3, I was completely freaked out. I mean, there was a section on day 3 during the day where we had to cover like 1,500 feet of elevation gain in less than a mile. And that's a lot. I mean, that's basically like rock scrambling. That's what we were doing. And at the time, my pack was somewhere in the mid 60 pounds for the start. And so on day 3, I mean, I was completely freaked out. And I asked one of my instructors, we had 2, I asked if we could meet because I was really not in a good way. And we sat together in his tent, and I'm like, I don't even remember his name now, but I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I have to quit. Like, I really thought this was impossible. It was only day 3. I was completely freaking out. I was scared shitless. I thought I was gonna die. Like, I didn't think I could physically live through this entire 20-night expedition. And I literally thought it was impossible. I had no idea how I was going to get through this, and it turns out I wasn't alone. So my instructor, was calm. He was absolutely amazing. I even get joked up now just thinking about it because he was so supportive, and I was in such a dire state that I didn't think I could do it. And he basically talked me off the ledge. Um, and And really, there was no way out of this situation because the only way to end this trip was through a medical evacuation. Like you had to have like a broken leg, a compound fracture, a heart attack, like bleeding out, head injury, spinal cord injury. That's the only way you're getting out of this expedition. You have to get through it. Um, and and he basically is like, you have to do it. We can't evac. Um, and even though we were getting a re-ration, God, it just chokes me up so much. It was so hard. I was so freaked out. Um, even getting, we couldn't even get evacuated during our re-ration, which was going to be on day 7, because our re-ration, which was a 12-day re-ration, was being brought in by horses, not by car. We weren't crossing a road or going into a town. Um, there was there was no way out. It was, I just didn't know how I was gonna do it. And I had to do it. So it just became like a day by day, hour by hour, step by step, just some way get through. Some way you had to get through this, and I didn't know how, and I didn't think it was possible. And so next day we were getting on glacier. We had crampons, we had ice axes, we had harnesses and ropes. There was just no way out. And oh my God, I didn't know how I was going to do it. But we packed up and we started walking, and together, we did it. We broke up into like 2 groups every day, and it became like the A team and the B team. The A team, were the people who had more experience and felt comfortable. The B team was like me, slower, freaking out, not as in good shape, didn't have the experience. And so we started, and just day by day, we did whatever we could do. We took our time. Um, we had our classes each day. We taught, because as an educator's course, we had to teach classes too. So we had brought books with us. Um, and then on day 6, we were starting our day, and it was only going to be like a 4-mile day, but it was all off trail. And we started with this massive climb up a snowfield to a saddle, and I should be able to show you pictures of this. And that took 45 minutes. We were only allowed to carry 1 liter of water at a time, because with all the gear that we had, that was what they told us. 1 liter of water. So we hydrated a lot. I drank 3 liters of water before 8 a.m., which is when we started our hike that day. Again, this is day 6, and on this day, we started with this snowfield where you had to kick steps into the snow. And we got to the saddle, and then, we traversed a ridge for a while, and then we started on this massive downhill through, it was all off trail, so it was just through the forest. And then we hit this massive boulder field that took like 3 hours to get through. And these boulders were not like basketball size. These were like refrigerator and car size boulders. And I think my pack was about 60 pounds at the time, because we had like no food left because we were getting re-ration the next day. And we were like boulder hopping, but again, our packs were lighter because they were only 60 pounds now. And it was in the baking sun. It was so hot. And we actually didn't get our first re-ration of water was at like 3 p.m. So we went from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on 1 liter of water, which is terrible. But that's all we had. There was no water. And then we were able to fill up, and we used iodine tablets for the whole trip. Okay, so that's fine. And we just, made our way downhill, and, gosh, the blisters and everything, like, cause your feet were always like on a side. And that's back when, I was wearing big, hiking boots. This is before trail runners and everything. And so we're making our way down, and it's getting dark. We had to pull out our headlamps. We're still going down. Again, this was only like a 4-mile hike, but it took us ultimately from 8 a.m. until like 10 p.m. is when we finally got to camp. So 14 hours to go 4 miles. That's how hard it was. And it wasn't until like 9 o'clock at night, we were taking a break on the side of a mountain, on the side of a hill, and we were deciding, do we keep going or do we just, bivvy right here on the side of the hill, and sleep? You couldn't set up a tent. There was no, area to do that. You would just have to like lay on the ground somewhere. But we heard some water, and we could check on the map, but we heard water. So my instructor and I navigated over to where we found a creek, and so he and I collected the water bottles for our group of, there was like 6 in our group, and maybe 5 in the other group. And we went and got water. And luckily I had my water filter. So my water filter was this 1-pound filter. You stick the hose in the water and you pump it. It's not like the Sawyer or Ketadine Be-Free water filters of today. This was like a big 1-pound clunky item. Again, we used iodine, and I used that a lot and helped others with it as well. But they didn't want me to bring it, but I was like, no, I'm bringing this water filter. So they let me, but I had to carry it. It was an extra pound. And every ounce, every pound counts. So we went and got water, and oh my God, we filtered this water, and each of us just drank a liter of water, like in an instant. We both just pounded water, filled up everyone's water bottle, brought it back, and then we were able to keep going, because that was only our second liter of water since 8 a.m. and it was about 9 o'clock at night. So imagine only having 2 liters of water in 12 hours, 13 hours of hard exercise. I mean, it was tough. So we brought the water back, people could drink, and then like an hour later, we didn't know how long it was going to be, but it was like an hour later, we got to camp, which was down by a river. We could get water. We made dinner. Our instructor made the best mac and cheese I've ever had in my entire life. And these were the big steel pots and steel pans, and you cook the macaroni. It's not instant. It's not this freeze-dried, prepackaged stuff. Everything was make it. We made calzones in the backcountry with flour and water. Like that's what we were doing back then. So it was that day 6 where I was able to rise to the occasion, and I got my hiking legs, if you will. I was able to help others. It's almost like getting out of my own way, not focusing on myself, but helping others. That was my huge turnaround day. And after that day, and then day 7, we got our re-ration. And it was a rest day, and we learned how to do river crossing, because we had to cross a river on day 8. So we did river crossing training, which I see these videos of people crossing water on the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail. And I'm sorry, most people are actually doing it completely incorrectly, which is unsafe, which we don't want to be unsafe out there. But anyway, it was on day 6 and getting the water for others and getting to camp when the A team actually didn't even make it to camp that night. They ended up bivvying on the side of the mountain, and they came in the next morning. But that's when I knew I was going to be able to get through this 20-night expedition, this NOLS Course expedition. And it was absolutely amazing. It was life-changing. It set me on a trajectory, since 1998, on a trajectory of adventure, outdoor backpacking. And then I got into triathlon, which you can see those videos on my channel. But it was a life-changing, life-defining moment. And not to make this video even longer, but something else that I learned among a million things that I learned during this NOLS course. I cannot recommend NOLS enough for anyone who's interested in anything outdoors. But there was a time later in the course that it was mountaineering, and we were summiting Mount Olympus, because the whole NOLS course that we were on was traversing the entire Olympic National Park in Washington State. And so we were summiting Mount Olympus, and Mount Olympus is only like 8,000 feet. It's not that high, but it's kind of technical. You have to transition first you have to navigate glaciers and navigate a glacier and lots of crevasses that you can fall into. So we were in rope teams, we were harnessed, and I'll show you pictures of that. We were in it, and then we had to climb. Then we had to transition from the glacier to the rock, and we were not roped up. And if you fell, you would literally fall down under the glacier, and we threw rocks down there. You would fall hundreds of feet and be trapped under a glacier. So this was like legit. This was serious. I don't even know how we did it. We didn't have rock climbing shoes. We were just in our boots. But we transitioned, and then that's a time when I learned about myself that for me, I am so much more about the journey than the destination. And it was so wonderful to learn that lesson, because me and another student, Karen, she and we were about 200 vertical feet from the summit of Mount Olympus. And we were like, you know what? We're done. We're not going any higher. We were absolutely scared shitless. We were petrified. We were on this ridge that we literally had to straddle with our legs. And on one side was a 4,000 foot drop. I mean, it was just a sheer cliff drop off. We were not roped up. And this is before I even knew anything about rock climbing. But anyway, so one side was a sheer 4,000 foot drop off, and the other side you would bounce on rock for a couple hundred feet maybe, and then you would fall underneath the glacier a couple hundred feet more and be like dead under a glacier next to the rock. So we were both so scared that we're like, we're done. We're not going any further. We're just going to wait here. And, a few of the A team members, they went to the summit. And a couple people didn't even start out on the day, because this day started at like 1 a.m. So it was an alpine midnight basically start. That's how you start when you're summiting, a real mountain summit. So that's when I learned that the journey is more important to me than the destination. So 200 vertical feet, I didn't even do it. I'm done. Excellent decision. Karen and I just stayed there and waited for the people to come back. I heard that one of the other students literally sat down crying on her way up because she was so freaked out. She just basically sat crying. And there were other times throughout this 3 weeks where people would just stop and they would just cry because they were so scared or overwhelmed or exhausted or freaked out or whatever it was. That was common. But for me, after that day 6, I was able to help others more because I felt the confidence in myself, and then I could bring that to others as well. And just so you know, that re-ration that we got on day 7 was a 12-day re-ration. So that's like 24 pounds of food, literally, because we did like 2 pounds of food per day. So, and then we got more, we got the mountaineering gear. So we got more ropes and harnesses and pickets. We had our ice axes, crampons. None of this was like ultra light or even lightweight. So my pack starting on day 8 was 84 pounds, and I weighed about 150 pounds at the time. And everybody in the entire group was carrying weight that was more than like 60% of their body weight. And I remember that one instructor who helped me on day 3, he was smaller than me, and his pack was literally like 100 pounds, literally. I mean, it towered over him, and he just bounced around like it was nothing. I mean, these instructors were just freaking unbelievable. So anyway, there's a lot more to it. Maybe I'll do a little slideshow of a few more, pictures. But it was really just a life-changing experience. I didn't think it was possible on day 3. Totally got into my own on day 6. And finished the whole 20 nights. And I've done, bigger expeditions since then. Lots of, weekend and week long type stuff. Got into rock climbing for many, many years, over a decade of rock climbing. Got into the triathlon world, learned more about nutrition and hydration and injury prevention. You can see these different videos on the channel. But really, I just wanted to share this experience. It's tough, things are tough out there. But if we challenge ourselves, if we do it in a safe enough way, it really, and this all started from a question on the Uchi app, that I got to share with, the handfuls of people that I use Uchi with, that there are times when you think something is absolutely impossible and then it becomes possible. And I'd love to hear stories, that you've had in your life, and don't just comment for me, but comment on something that you learned from that might inspire someone else who watches this video or reads the comments. Think about the other people who might see this video, about how your experience might help them. So like and share, but really comment thinking about the other people who might view this video, because your experience could really make a difference in their life. Okay, so until next time, peace, love, and connect.